Hi, my name is Carol.
My name is Hasna, and we are Current Harmony Connections.
Current Harmony Connections is an online community organization that aims to raise awareness to the challenges we currently face in society, helping educate people so they can make a positive impact in their communities.
Speaking Volumes is our first panel discussion and interview event, and our topics are Asian empowerment, Muslim empowerment, Black empowerment, women empowerment, navigating COVID, and mental health.
Be sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up to our videos.
Please follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links will be in the description box below.
We hope you enjoy our panel discussions and interviews.
Okay, so without further ado, we'll get started. So first, I'd like each of you to introduce yourself, kind of give like a small background. So first, say your name, who you are, and what you do. So first, we can start with Frank.
Hey, Frank, F-R-A-N-K, K-N-K-I-N-G. I'm a suicide prevention speaker, former writer for The Tonight Show for 20 years, and I've lived with major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation.
Next, we can start with Magic.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Magic Collins. I'm a content creator, mental health advocate, civil rights advocate. I also am a group facilitator at NAMI West LA for mental health. And yeah.
We can start with Michelle.
Hi, I'm Alicia London. I'm the founder and CEO at United for Global Mental Health, and I also live in London. It's not only my name.
And next, Tarisiro.
My name is Tari. I'm a recent graduate at the University of Manchester and also the co-founder of Create Zim, a youth-led organization built to tackle mental health in Zimbabwe.
Okay, great. So we'll go over the first question. So the first question is, what made you decide to be a mental health advocate? And if you started like an organization, why did you start and when made you start it? So first we can start with Tarisiro. You could talk more about Create Zim and your personal experiences.
So the reason why I started Create Zim is because of a personal reason. My brother, he passed on due to suicide, and in Zimbabwe in specific, there is very, very big cases of toxic masculinity. And so he never had the opportunity to share his opinions, to share his emotions, specifically coming from quite a family which is viewed in let's say, high regard. And as a man, as the eldest in the family, he couldn't share his emotions. And so I wanted to make an online platform where young adults and teenagers around the world could find an opportunity to share their experiences and their coping mechanisms in regard to mental health, specifically because the topic of mental health is very thick in Zimbabwe and is normally associated with demonic possession and other things. Just putting a platform out there where young people can show that we're all on this mental health spectrum, but also share coping mechanisms in that, I thought would be a way to save other people's brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's really great. Alicia, can you talk more about United Global Mental Health and how you found it and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So mental health wasn't something I'd ever really thought about before I suffered a trauma in 2013 and spent a few years recovering and intended on going back to work, but then was asked to take on the role of campaign director for Heads Together, the campaign here in the UK, spearheaded by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry. Because my background was in campaigning, I'd worked on a lot of campaigning for global issues all around the world. It was something I was really pleased to take on, to focus my interest in mental health personally with my experience of campaigning. And actually, at the end of that campaign, I started to realize how little action there is on mental health around the world. So when you look at the amount of financing that is spent on mental health by global funders, by national governments, when you look at the policies that are in place, national systems, around the world, there's just not a concerted global effort to accelerate. And there's amazing people, as we're hearing already, who are really working to change this at a national level. And so we founded United for Global Mental Health really as the first global organization set up to catalyze global action on mental health, financing political business. And it's been an incredible journey over 2 years to see that grow, and a huge desire from people around the world to collaborate, to see action in every country, no matter where we live.
Yeah, definitely. So, Magic, why did you decide to be a mental health advocate? Oh, you're muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm treated for bipolar 1 and PTSD with some levels of anxiety disorder, and which coming up, I'm from South Central LA during the 80s, historic crime and violence, and for me, I've always had this kind of wanting to save people and animals and whatever I could save because of that. And so with my friends, I've always tried to figure out, like I could always see people stuck mentally, and myself as well. So it's kind of just evolved. And when I got into art was my first, like, I feel like if you grow up poor, then a lot of times you find ways to self-medicate. Sometimes it's positive ways, and sometimes negative ways. And I felt like before there were terms, before I knew what these terms were, I found ways to self-medicate. Like I feel like music is a natural mood stabilizer, and I feel like the more I was talking to my friends about the situations that we were stuck in, the more we had like epiphanies. And so when I got into the art therapy, we didn't really know it was art therapy, but that's what it was. Like all the doodling in the back of the class with anxiety, it's like that was a way to get through the class without freaking out and never coming back to school. So it was like I'm always examining my own behavior as well as the behavior of others. And then when I got into entertainment, moving to LA, I realized like entertainers, like there's such a premium on being unhealthy is healthy, where entertainers will put themselves to a point of nervous breakdowns, and that's considered healthy. So there's all these elements kind of adding up, and finally I kind of had an epiphany where it's like my work would be in mental health as I started going to therapy. I've been in out therapy for about maybe 7 or 8 years now. And so as I start unpacking my own stories and influencing my friends to get help in various ways, I started kind of discovering how deep and massive mental health is, as well as resources. I didn't know there's about 50 different types of ways you can get help. It's like everybody always just thinks it's therapy, but there's so many different avenues. So with that, it's just I kind of dived into the mental health field with all that imposter syndrome kicking up, and it's like you just got to keep going straight, man. You just keep moving. So that's kind of been my journey, and I still feel like a baby when it comes to the industry and learning the field and who's doing what. So that's a ongoing process of just kind of getting humbled and trying to staying humble and just allow myself to learn and not rush it. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to mental health, we can definitely learn a lot more than what we know now, especially with, for example, this panel, everyone's perspectives and experiences. They'll go ahead and help you see differently. So Frank, can you tell us why you decided to be a mental health advocate?
Well, unlike Magic, I have what I call reverse imposter syndrome. I'm not worried that someone's going to find out that I'm not all that I claim to be. I believe I am all that. I'm waiting for somebody to figure that out. And I didn't know that until I interviewed a guy on a podcast on imposter syndrome. I'd never even heard of it. I thought, wait a minute, dude, I've got just the reverse of that. It runs in my family. My grandmother died by suicide. My mother found her. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed for days. I'll spare you the details, but if you want to know the story, it's in my first of 5 TEDx talks, A Matter of Laugh or Death, 10 years ago. At the height of the recession, after we'd lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I had time, place, and method, and I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger, which gets a nervous laugh from the audience. They're like, should we be laughing at that? A friend of mine came up to me after the keynote. He'd never heard me say that. And he said, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I said, hey, man, could you try to sound a little less disappointed? That's the comedian in me. I, as a comedian, always wanted to make a living and a difference. I wanted to have takeaways, able-tos, how-tos, action items, but I could never figure out what I had to teach anybody until I came so close to ending my life and looked back at my family history. So in 2014, my wife suggested I do a TEDx talk, and I had no idea what a TEDx talk was, but I applied, I got it. They asked that, since I was talking about suicide prevention, that I mentioned Robin Williams, and I worked with him a couple of shows, and I had already planned to mention him because he passed away about between the time I got the TED talk and the time I did it. And I needed to do the TEDx because I've been a comedian at that point for 28 years. Everybody thought of me as a funny guy. I needed a way to rebrand. So I came out on stage at age 56 as depressed and suicidal. Nobody knew. My family, my friends, my wife. People with mental illness, often a good actor. There's a reason I have a Screen Actors Guild card. And so I came out on stage as depressed and suicidal. The theme of the TEDx was start the conversation on suicide, because even though one person dies by suicide every 11 minutes in the US, hardly anybody talks about it unless you bring it up, and that everybody's got a story. So that's what my clients, NAMI, I've spoken several times for several chapters of NAMI. They tell me, we're bringing you in here simply to start the conversation on suicide. My goal is to make it as easy as talking about the weather. For the benefit of those who are listening, there may be somebody who has chronic suicidal ideation. When I speak, it's very therapeutic for me, in part because I talk about my chronic suicidal ideation. And I've had clinicians stare at me when I said that because they had no idea what that was. It means for me and people in my tribe, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And the example I give is, my car broke down. I had 3 thoughts unbidden: get it fixed, buy a new one, or I can just kill myself. That's chronic suicidal ideation. And I did a college show. A young woman came up afterwards. She said, thanks for your keynote. I said, you're welcome. She said, but I got to tell you, it made me weep. How did it make you weep? Well, she said, your story about the car, get it fixed, buy a new one, you could just kill yourself. She goes, I've been having those thoughts all my life. I didn't know it had a name. I thought I was some kind of freak. When I heard you say that out loud, I realized for the first time in my life that I'm not alone, and I wept. Now, that right there would be my why.
Yeah, definitely the point of this panel is to raise awareness to a current issue like mental health, especially in this time of pandemic. A lot of people are going through mental health issues. And we definitely want to let people know that you are not alone in what is going on. So Nick, I'm glad you made it. So first, I'd like you to introduce yourself, say your name, who you are, and what you do.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name's Nick Wilson, and obviously I'm across the water in the UK, and I'm an Army veteran. I served in the Army for 14 years, got out 8 years ago, and I've run a couple of successful businesses in that time, and 4 years ago in July. So just last month, I attempted suicide. Failed at it, although I get told off when I say that I failed. And from there, I was then diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder from time in the military and things that I've seen, and depression and generalized anxiety disorder. And then, so the past 4 years has been very much a journey of recovery, but also a journey of discovery, of growth and development in myself, and really opening my mind to what is beyond my condition. And I think so many people concentrate so much on what their diagnosis is and what their illness is, they don't manage to see past that, and to really be open-minded and to look beyond, you know, to look outside of the box of what else is going on, and the greater picture. So I started a mental health consultancy 3.5 years ago, and that's what I would class as being successful. Maybe not monetarily wise, but certainly from the people that we're helping, the organisations we're getting into, and the recognition and the credibility that we have earned from the work that we have done.
Yeah, thank you for your perspective and everything that you've told us. So I'd like to go over how mental health is often a hard topic to bring up. We should.
Yeah, it's been interesting actually to watch it over the past 4 years, you know, and to see how the conversations have been improving, and more people have been getting engaged, and that has been great to see. The difficulties are much more, I think, to do with politics. The difficulties, guys are, it's well known that us guys don't talk as much about our emotions and our feelings, and you know, it's seen as kind of being weak. I don't know what it's like over in America. I can almost assume in certain regions of America where, I don't know, Texas maybe, you know, would you get a Texan guy talking about their emotions, you know? And maybe that's a bit of a judgment or assumption, but I think you know what I'm aiming at. There's certain places, regions in America which they just wouldn't do that, you know? And we have exactly the same in the UK in various different regions where, you know, they're just, especially within the gangs and the young kids and things like that, you know, trying to get them to see that talking about their emotions and their feelings isn't a weakness, and that actually having a vulnerability instead of hiding it, that we should be embracing it and showing it, because there's true strength in demonstrating your vulnerability. So whilst the conversations have been improving in general, especially within social media and the likes, when you look at the individuals who are having the conversations, they're all mental health advocates or ambassadors like us, you know? Is the conversations really getting down to the individuals at the heart of it, you know? And I think to people, a lot of people are watching. They're watching to see what happens. And at the minute, there's a big difference between people talking about stuff and people actually taking action, you know? And there's a chasm there at the moment of, it's great, we can talk like this to the end of time, and yeah, it will change certain things and good things will come out of it, but it would be smaller percentages, you know, whereas actually taking action, that's what we need to be seeing, is action happening, and it's happening very slowly at the moment. But if we can change that and change the conversations from just talking about it on social media to groups actually taking action, that is going to have a much bigger impact on the various different groups within society and society itself.
Yeah, we should all take action and try to start initiatives. But Alicia, so why do you believe that mental health is a hard topic to bring up, and why is the issue of mental health not taken seriously?
Big question, and I think we've touched on already the stigma that surrounds mental health is one of the biggest reasons why it's difficult to bring up. I think it's really interesting when you break down what stigma means. So we measure stigma according to knowledge, so how much we know about mental health, by attitudes, so what we believe about it, and by our behaviors. And you can actually track this. Here in the UK, we've tracked it very significantly to see how that's changing over time. And I think as you see more education often coming in first, it really helps to then adjust behaviors and attitudes. But it takes a really long time. And I think that's in the UK. I think the global perspective is one that I've spent a lot of time over the last few years with experts from all around the world to understand the differences. And I think, Nick, you're absolutely right. We've seen a huge amount of progress here. It's a very, very different story in most countries in the world. Suicide is illegal in dozens of countries. And so Sierra Leone has only just repealed their Lunacy Act, where you could be imprisoned from having a mental health condition. Shackling is in many countries where the only treatment option is being locked up. And you know, the reality of mental health and the stigma can prevent us from talking, but in many countries around the world, it's actually quite dangerous to talk about it. And so we've got a really long way to go to address that. I think the second part of your question, you can just remind me what that was. So is why don't people take it seriously? Or, you know, how do we not see it taken seriously? In so many ways, from an individual level, are people feeling comfortable to speak? In some countries, yes, more and more, and others, long way to go. I think we're also seeing it, one of the things we really focus on is asking the question and addressing why aren't politicians taking it seriously? You cannot be a full, productive, healthy member of society without support for your mental health if you need it. And it's a good investment. We know that. We know for any business, any government that invests £1, $1 into mental health is at least a 4 or 5 times return. So there's an economic argument there. It's a human rights case that we all have the right to good mental health. The case is really strong, and still, so we're still seeing between 1% and 3% of an average health budget, which is often very small, being dedicated to mental health. Despite this scale, depression is the #1 cause of disease. It's a leading cause of death for young women. You know, you can go on and on about the case. You can go on and on about the value of investing and what it brings to us as individuals and businesses and society as a whole. Yet still the actual spend, the actual action by governments, by businesses, by funders, is so negligible. And I think that's, to me, shows how society as a whole isn't taking it seriously. And one of the reasons why, which is, we can talk about the stigma, but we've never seen a rally cry. We haven't seen people marching on the streets. We haven't seen mass citizen demand. So businesses, governments need to see that in order to respond. So I think if we've got to go a little bit back on ourselves as advocates to say, how can we be more effective in getting those outside our circles to act? We need to be really compelling, really smart, and show that this is something that really affects everybody. And that's what a lot of our time is doing here at United for Global Mental Health.
So, Frank, what about you? Why do you believe that mental health is a hard topic to bring up, and why is the issue not taken seriously?
Before we do that, Hunter, can I ask for a housekeeping favor?
Yeah.
If you could share contact information on our panelists. Nick, I've got a friend who was on the Coventry in the Falklands War. It sank in 20 minutes. He's dealing with PTSD. And Magic, I've got a friend in Southern California who was Volunteer of the Year for NAMI about 4 years ago, still working with NAMI. So I'd love to be able to, stay in touch with everybody. I believe one, stigma. Two, people are neurotypical people are afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. There's an urban legend, at least here in the U.S., that you should never say suicide in front of somebody who's depressed because it will give them the idea. Suicide, what a great idea. Why didn't I think of it? There's that. I think it's sort of where alcoholism, drug addiction, or substance use disorder was 50, 60 years ago. There's a reason that Alcoholics Anonymous was anonymous when it was formed, because drinking was believed to be oftentimes a moral failing, a character flaw, and now of course we know it's a disorder, it's a disease. And I think mental health, mental illness is just catching up to that now. People are realizing it's not a character flaw or a moral issue. It's not a matter of motivation or resilience. It's perhaps organic, as it is in my family. So I think the tide is turning, but very slowly. I think the reason I get hired is to start that very conversation, because it is so difficult. They hire me to come in, I tell my story, and as Nick mentioned, I'm vulnerable on stage. Vulnerability is my superpower. You don't see a lot of guys up on stage talking about depression, thoughts of suicide. And Nick is right. 8 out of 10 people in the U.S. who die by suicide every year at this point are men. It's called either male or masculine toxicity. Big boys don't cry. And it's not just mental things. Big boys don't get colonoscopies or have a PSA test. They just let that stuff go because big boys don't do that. Tomorrow, by the way, just by coincidence, second volume of our book on men's mental health. I have a psychologist friend, Dr. Sally Spencer Thomas, and a therapist, Sarah Gare. They had an idea. They went looking for a men's mental health book on Amazon. Couldn't find one specifically on men's mental health. So we have started out, it's going to be one book, and now it's 4 because it turned into 1,000 pages. It's sort of a chicken soup for the soul. 12 gentlemen, each book, each one has an issue, and each one tells whoever's reading it how they're coping, because what men told us in the survey was they wanted real men with real problems, coping and real solutions, because apparently men take advice from men more than they do from women. And by the way, in the US, the barbershop movement, African-American barbershop, real conversations about real things the barbershop's always been sort of a safe place for African-Americans throughout, the last turbulent 140 years. So, and then in Australia, the shed movement began there. Found that if you had 2 guys underneath the hood of a car not looking each other in the eye, they could talk about just about anything, and that spread to Europe and now the US. So our second book is about that. Men, as Nick has done, men need to find a group, because as men go through life, they tend to shed friends, except at work, women tend to collect them. So men oftentimes need community. And I think what Nick is doing is exactly what we need to help destigmatize and start the conversation. As I said, my goal is not only to save lives, but to start the conversation and make it as easy as talking about sports or women.
Yeah, it's like Alicia said as well. It's about education. I really believe that education is maybe even the key to all of this. There's a lot of naivety through, I don't know if naivety is the right word, but through lack of knowledge, through lack of understanding. And people are always scared of what they don't know. And because mental health is what's the right word? Palatable, is that? No. Basically it can't be seen. It's invisible. You can't touch it. You can't see it. And because of that, it makes it even harder, or it makes it easier to ignore, because you can't actually see it. And so that is a bigger problem. What we try to do is really educate people. So our 3 aims are to inspire, educate, and empower. So we want to inspire people to want to learn more. And then when we've taught them more and they've got that education, they've got the knowledge, and it's then empowering them, giving them the confidence to act and to do something about it. You're absolutely right, Frank. People need the education and the empowerment, and guides really need leaders, people to stand up and go, follow me. This is the way forward. You're safe. You can do this. Let's go. I'd love to get involved with what Alicia's doing. I love the sound of it, even though I've only heard about 60 seconds. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just jump in
definitely
sometimes. Sorry, Othman.
It's fine. We should definitely start educating about mental health, so when people do go through these issues, they understand how to tackle them. Especially in your teenage years, your hormones are changing, and there's often a lot of mental health issues that you're going through, anxiety, depression. As I've gone through personally depression and had to tackle it for 3 years. Only now can I reflect on it and be able to actually bring it up. It was then, especially because of cultural things, and when I'm the eldest in the house, you have to hold a certain responsibility and keep everyone in check, and also be the optimistic person.
I think it's also a matter of educating neurotypical or neuronormal people. That's part, when I speak, I speak for the people with mental illness in the room, but also to decode it for people, because sometimes it's not what they know, it's what they think they know. I get this question a lot: why did so-and-so want to die? And my standard answer is, there's a good chance they didn't want to die, they just wanted to end the pain. And a lot of neurotypical people. And then there's, well, that was a selfish act. Well, it appears selfish from the outside, but you guys know, part of the three-legged stool on suicide, besides social isolation and the willingness to do it, is a sense of burdensomeness. I believe truly that my wife would be better off without me. So from the inside looking out, it's a selfless act, irrational. But so I try to educate the public, to things like that, misconceptions of it.
So Teresa, can you tell us more about why mental health is often a hard topic to bring up and why it's not taken seriously, especially with the culture in Zimbabwe, and with the cultural stigma, and especially family who don't understand you?
Yeah, so what's really interesting, in Zimbabwe, there's a big classism divide. So not really a middle class, there's an upper class and there's a lower class. With the upper class, we have people, not all people, but a lot of like young people, teenagers, young adults, the word mental health becomes a buzzword. So similar to words like sustainability and other words that are going on at the moment, mental health has become like a tag that people sometimes put on themselves as, I guess, something that's trending, something that's cool. And so you have some people not wanting to actually talk about some of their mental health issues because they'll feel as if maybe they're self-diagnosing themselves, or maybe they are complaining about something that isn't really real. So you have this problem going on in the upper class where lots of people want to talk about mental health, but because of the buzzness, or like because it's so, I guess, popular, it's being spoken about so much in the Western world, and a lot of the upper class look to the Western world, you get lots of people with the actual maybe issues not wanting to come forward because they think they won't be taken seriously. And the way my community organization tackles this is we have an online series on our Instagram, Facebook, where we use positive themes. For example, over the last 3 months during the pandemic, we had a series called Living in Lockdown, where different Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe, outside of Zimbabwe, share their experiences about living in lockdown, how it's maybe affecting their mental health based on a change of routine, based on, trying to live with people you haven't lived with in a long time, i.e. your family. And then they would then share their coping mechanisms in that. And what this would do is young people would see other young people, their friends, people they never imagined having mental health issues. and then seeing that, one, they're human and they have these issues, two, it's okay to have these issues, but three, they would then also use those coping mechanisms that other people are using and apply them to their own lives, and that would really help them. But then you then have the lower class, which are very desperate. They're very poor, and when they're desperate, they seek absolutely anything to, let's say, fulfill their desires, to maybe treat their mental health. And where do they go? They go to things like witchcraft. And so there's a big problem in regard to viewing all things mental health related as demonic possession. So as Alicia was saying, that, you know, when it comes to issues like mental health, some people are shunned. Some people are, you know, viewed as if God has maybe cursed their family or cursed their child. And so the issue around mental health for the lower class becomes very difficult, because there's lots of taboo witchcraft in regard to that. But as Frank and Alicia were saying, that also comes due to the lack of knowledge. And so we partnered with the Zimbabwe Psychological Association, because our organization is youth-led, and so therefore none of us are qualified practitioners. And so we would take some of their articles and create creative animations for these people in the lower class and the upper class, to show them that you know, mental health does exist, and it is for both people, and it is for all people, but because we are trying to use innovative and creative ways to do so, we find more and more people becoming more knowledgeable about it, because they can see that it's just not a, let's say, a Western thing. Because some people would then think, oh, I'm Black, therefore it means I do not suffer from mental health, when that isn't actually the case.
True. If I just have to say something. One of my favorite things that I've seen in mental health has come from Zimbabwe. I'm sure you know what I might be saying, but there's some amazing community initiatives like the ones you're doing, but also the Friendship Bench has become a really amazing example designed out of Zimbabwe, which so many countries around the world are benefiting from. And it's a really great example where someone has taken it seriously. And the Friendship Bench is an organization that trains grandmothers to provide therapy over a course of 6 sessions, and they sit on a bench. They originally called it the Depression Bench, and no one wanted to sit on it. It's now the Friendship Bench. And Dixon Chabanda and the team at the Friendship Bench have scaled that, and they're looking to do a lot more. It's a wonderful story, and the results they have are really significant by not just listening to someone, but listening to someone who's been trained to provide therapies over a course, or to escalate to mental health professionals. I know there's 12 psychiatrists in Zimbabwe. There's there's a small number, but initiatives like that providing support and like yours to communities that need it. And you can go sit on a bench and have a chat with a grandmother. They have free time and lots of empathy, and it's just incredibly powerful. So there are really great initiatives of people who are taking it seriously. We've got a lot to learn from those in Zimbabwe, all around the world. I believe they've taken it to New York now as well, and a few other countries, so it's great.
Yeah, they have. So they are our partners, and like, I guess the that with mental health, because we're all humans, we all cope differently, and so they just like read Zimbabwe and saw that, you know, in every village there is a grandmother, and by virtue of doing that, they're, you know, creating these little support systems in all these different areas.
Great.
We can definitely all learn from each other. I mean, just listening to all your experiences now is giving, you know, people listening to this, even myself, a different perspective on mental health. So we've went over the issue of mental health being a hard topic to bring up, and the issue of it not being taken seriously. So Magic, what are some suggestions to have better conversations with people who still attach a stigma, and how can we build community support to enhance mental wellness? Frank, can you answer the question?
Well, I think the Zimbabwean, you know, the concept of the grandmothers, the shed movement, the barbershop movement, Here in the United States, in the Veterans of Foreign Wars halls, there's a bar always, and dart boards always, and dart teams. And you do not have to be a veteran to be on a dart team. And they have discovered, again, if men are throwing darts, not looking each other in the eye, they can talk about just about anything, things that are important. So I'm with Nick. I think since 8 out of 10 people who die by suicide in the U.S. right now are men, the occupations, construction, mining, excavation lead the lead, very male heavy. I think the answer is what Nick is up to, is getting men together in groups where they can discuss things that are important. In the United States, they have something called at Alcoholics Anonymous, a stag group, where it's either all men or all women, because he says, because he's in a stag group, that men and women tend to be more forthcoming if there's not somebody, of the other binary sex in the room. So I think helping men build a sense of community, since 8 out of 10 are suicide their men, would be a great start.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Frank. We're finding that masculinity. Every week we have set questions, and we have word of the week, and it's always something that makes the individual think about themselves, think about the bigger picture, and things like that. And we posed one the other week on masculinity, and it was really interesting on the feedback from the guys, on what it means to be a man in 2020, and apart from the stereotypical alpha type, generational older person. Aside from that, guys are kind of feeling that they don't know where they fit in life anymore. Whilst women, females have grown, have developed, have become so much stronger, and rightly so. And the whole female movement that's been happening over the past 4 or 5 decades, whatever it is. Whilst that's been happening, men have just pretty much, I got told off for saying the word stagnant, so I won't say that one again, but I'll say that basically guys certainly haven't grown at the same rate as what the female movement has. And so whilst you've still got, now that you've got women in relationships who are independent and are stronger and don't need a man to look after themselves, and which is brilliant. But now the guys are kind of like feeling that, well, what do I do? Because I want to look after my kids, I look after my home, and all this kind of stuff. And they still have that mindset. And so they are being left to be very confused. And that's from, bearing in mind, we've got age groups from early 20s up to mid 50s. So we're not just a group of middle-aged guys just having a moan and whinging and talking shit. We're actually, we've got a massive range. And even the young lads, we've got 6, 7 guys in their early 20s who are struggling with masculinity and who actually are they and where do they sit in life. And if you introduced a female into the group, they would zip up, they wouldn't talk because they'd feel threatened, they wouldn't want to open up, so whilst we shouldn't be segregating, it's the ability for an individual to feel safe within a group so that they can speak whatever's on their mind and they're not judged or anything like that, or they don't even have the perception of being judged. But then we also provide groups at the same time for the partners and family members, because I think you said before, Frank, about suicide and someone who's thinking of it, and even if they do it, is that selfish because of how it impacts everyone else, or is it not, or how is it perceived, how is it judged? and the partners and family members who are looking after that individual who has mental illness, they go through a really dark period, you know, and it's really so difficult to look after and support someone with a mental illness. And I know this for myself because I lost my forever partner last September. We separated, it all became too much for her. And unfortunately now we don't even speak anymore, and she's now having to go on her own mental health journey. And whilst there were external variables, it wasn't just about me. A lot of it was about the impact that I had on her mental health while she was looking after me. So, you know, it's so important to kind of have those groups and to have those abilities. But we've still got to be able to have those conversations. And Hosna, what you said, I think the question was, how do we hold the conversations when with these people who still have a stigma? I think it's understanding who you're speaking to. As again, Frank and I think is it Tarry? I hope I got that name right. I think they've mentioned already that it's you know, we're all individuals. We all know that mental health is individual. We all know that we're amazing, unique individuals, which then makes it extremely difficult to have the one message, and there is no one message.
So do you have any future plans that you'd like to let the audience know that we can look forward to?
Yes, the second volume of our book on men's mental health is called Guts, Grit, and the Grind, a mental mechanics manual. All of them are called that. It's automobile metaphors, looks like a car owner's manual. Second volume comes out tomorrow, and we'll release 3 and 4 before the end of the year. Available in ebook and Audible and print versions, and you can get them on Amazon. And you know, we think what's going to happen, Hosna, is that men will buy it, but I'll bet you our sales are mostly to women who have a man in their life, and they're just flummoxed as to how to help out. And so we're hoping that it's not just stories, it's resources, clinical information, exercises, advice. So hopefully, you know, between men buying it and women buying it, we can start that conversation you were talking about, destigmatize it, and begin to get people the treatment that they truly need.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us today, Frank. I know that you have a meeting, so if you need to leave anytime, you can go ahead, but thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Thanks for inviting me.
For participating. So we can go on with Alicia with the question. So you can bring up something about October 10th.
Yeah.
What are your future plans that we should all look forward to?
Yeah, perfect. One thing just to say, at United, what we've been doing is kind of incubating initiatives that can catalyze greater action. So Speak Your Mind has got 20 countries calling on their governments. We're working on a new business initiative with Global Business. Look forward to launching soon. The Blueprint Group, I wanted to just a shout out as well. The Blueprint Group is a group of 800 country governments, UN agencies, advocates, anyone who's interested in advocating for mental health at a global level. It's open to anyone who's doing global mental health advocacy. We convene that. There'll be other initiatives that we incubate to help catalyze action to different audiences over time. But one in particular that everybody can participate in. And just to say, to preface this, Nick, I totally agree. The messages of what we say need to be customized for different audiences, especially different countries as well, which is why all our work is nationally led. We just help to unite globally. There's one exception to that. And I think everybody's got one message, which we're hoping everyone will use on World Mental Health Day this year. We've never had a World Mental Health Day on October 10th, which is truly uniting. There's never been a global campaign. Everyone does their own thing and it's kind of fragmented. And honestly, I think we have a general population that if we give them a way to engage with this conversation, I think a lot more people care about mental health than are currently talking about it. So, you know, I've not met one person over the last 3 years in any situation that doesn't care about this. Maybe they've not acted before, but everybody has either suffered themselves or loves somebody who does. And so we've created a campaign which will actually launch on the 10th of September with the World Federation of Mental Health and the WHO. So I can't say what it is, but the one message will be it's time to invest. And it's time to invest in our mental health. You know, it's been neglected for too long, everywhere, all around the world. This is individuals investing in their own mental health. This is businesses, this is governments, this is funders. Investment can take a range of different forms, but it's time to act. And we will have a common global campaign that everyone can participate in. And we hope everyone will, because I think if we, like we've seen for other movements, when people en masse rise up and say, this is something I really care about, leaders have no response but to act. And so October 10th, if people want to find out more, our website is unitedgmh.org, and you can sign up and register, and we'll, as soon as we have all the information, we'll get it out there. But it's simple, and it'll be actually a little bit fun. And we'll be doing a 24-hour virtual march around the world in the 24 hours before, that we're hoping the advocates can really participate in as well. But this is a moment, the world cares about mental health. We've seen it this year more than ever. Some leaders are starting to move. The UN Secretary General has released a policy briefing for the first time, which is brilliant. We're seeing movement, but we really need to demonstrate that we want everyone to invest in this. And I really think it can happen if we come together.
Yeah, Alicia, what you said, I agree, is like really important to invest in mental health, especially with what's going on right now. And mental health issues are on the rise as the years go by, and I've realized it's targeting younger people every day. And we need to find a way to solve these issues rather than just ignoring it because you think that it's something that you can easily get over. Tercero, can you tell us any future plans that CreateZim may have?
So future plans that we have, because at the end of my, I guess, 3 years at the University of Manchester, the University of Manchester is actually ranked #1 in terms of social responsibility. And at the end of the year, they gave awards to different students and alumni doing various initiatives all over the world and in the UK. And CreateZim actually won the first prize for an international initiative making a difference. But obviously, this is in regard to mental health. And because of this and the other momentum we've had in terms of impacting, I think we have maybe a following of around 6,000 young adults and teens. We're looking at expanding and starting a UK charity called Create Africa, where we are going to start like-minded movements all over the African continent. So that would be Create South Africa, Create Nigeria, etc., where we're looking at replicating the CreateZim model because we've seen it work so well. So that would be 3 distinct things. So awareness, so doing those online series, tackling the problems that young people, teenagers are struggling with. So that could be an online series like employability anxiety. Those final year students, as they're finishing, probably like myself, in a global pandemic, how can you find a job? Lots of anxiety is going to be, I guess, filling your mind. And, lots of people are just panicking. They're taking this year as maybe a year off, maybe a year just to, I just don't know, panic and freeze. And so we'll be exploring different types of online series. But as Nick was saying, we're going to cater it to those specific regions because lots of humans are just so different. And also the African continent is so broad and so different. And so we're looking at, starting Create Africa and making these mental health messages targeted to the specific regions. And then the other one is support. So we're partnering with all kinds of psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, mental health nurses all over Africa to provide the support, because while Create Africa might be young adult and youth led, we're going to be looking for the professional backing to support all those with the problems. And then lastly, in regards to education, a lot of African countries use laughing as a coping mechanism. They use comedy as therapy. And so at the moment on CreateZim, one of the things that has, I guess, revolutionized Zimbabwe amongst the young adults is we have these like comedy skits, like 2 to 3 minutes skits of mental health situations in high school and in the rural areas. And in this, we show all these different real and like very relatable and like normal things, but but at the end of the videos, we show that there was actually an issue where someone's mental health was maybe neglected, or there could have been an opportunity to talk about that mental health, but it didn't happen. And we do this to basically throw out some thought-provoking questions to, I guess, Zimbabweans about maybe where they could have maybe spoken about mental health, or maybe how they could have done it. But we've also done it in a very fun way, because we found, specifically with Zimbabweans, when it comes to tough situations and hard things such as mental health, we use laughing as a coping mechanism. So yeah, I guess Create Africa is the big and next thing, and it would be interesting, looking at people like Alicia trying to maybe even collaborate and see what we can do from there.
No, yeah, this is definitely something to look forward to, even if it's targeted towards Zimbabweans. I mean, it's something that's more like we can all take an interest in, especially because people can look at you, Teresira, as an example as what you're doing, because I feel like that you're doing great things. And laughing, I feel that is really a coping mechanism. I especially watch comedy shows when I'm sad or when I'm angry, so I definitely feel that laughing is a great coping mechanism. And what you're doing with the comedy skits and mental health situations in high school, that's impressive. So Magic, can you tell us if you have any future plans regarding mental health?
Yes, it's good to be back. Yeah, just continue to create content that makes people think and makes people laugh, as well as create more consistent, like I guess you call it like electronic flyers or templates that kind of that keeps the conversation going. And also I want to expand, like I have the peer-to-peer group I do every week. I'm trying to figure out a way I want to make that with more people of color. So trying to figure out how to make that, bring that into NAMI West LA. Yeah, for me, it's just trying to organize all the moves you want to make. So yeah, I'll say I'm starting with this, continue to make the content I make, the peer-to-peer groups, which I've also noticed California is trying to invest more in peer-to-peer groups. I was in one of the city council meetings, so they're trying to expand funding for peer-to-peer groups around California, as well as kids who are struggling with sexuality, transgender population. They're trying to have more mental aid for them, because that's the highest suicide rate within the LGBTQ community. And that's what another part of what I'm trying to just learn as well, the landscape of mental health and budgeting, and how, like, just in California and in Los Angeles, how our budget system works. So that's a lot of homework as well. So for me, it's a constant daily balance of what am I learning, what am I creating, and how does my own mental health play into all that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, we'll definitely look forward to that. Especially with LGBTQ, issues going on when people come out. They have issues bringing it up, and you talking about that and trying to conquer those issues is really important. So I'd like to thank you all for coming today. sorry for any technical difficulties or anything like that. I hope that you all enjoyed this session. And do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to say to the audience or about this panel or anything that you would like to say?
For me, I would just like to say for, let's say, those coming from a, let's say, African background or a background where it's difficult to talk about mental health, try looking for what I call contact points. So there are always like situations or conversations where, or an area where you can resonate with people. And I know sometimes your parents, sometimes your friends might not want to hear about mental health or might not want to, let's say, even have the conversation. But this time during a global pandemic, trust me, is the only time people might even think about mental health a little bit. So use this opportunity to find that contact point, to find that, I guess, area where both of you resonate, where both of you can see that the lockdown has thrown your routine away, or the lockdown has made you, I don't know, live with a brother, a sister, mother for the first time ever in such a long and intense period, and how that's actually affected your mental health. Because the truth and the reality of the fact is that we all have mental health as much as we have physical health. But the things that we're on a spectrum, and we obviously want to keep ourselves on the positive side of the spectrum, but there is a reality that some of us aren't always on that positive side of the spectrum. And some of the ways to deal with that is by having a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Alicia, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to say?
I think to say, with everybody who's listening, everyone has such a different background. You may be an accountant, you wanted to go into accounting or design work or any areas, teachers. Just to say, wherever you work, whatever skills you have, the mental health movement needs you. You don't have to be kind of, I feel many people here, I'll give your life to leading mental health advocacy. You know, we need great designers, we need teachers advocating in schools, we need businesses putting this at the heart of their HR strategies, we need police officers like passionate about this. So I would just say, whoever you are, whatever you're interested in doing, whatever skills you have, think about how you might be able to bring them to the movement. And most importantly, look after your own mental health. This is hard work. I've seen so many mental health advocates who give everything, and we can only keep giving as well as we're healthy. And so looking after your own mental health has to be a foundation for doing this work as well.
Yeah, of course. Magic, do you have... what would you say?
No, I was just going to say, following on from Alicia on individual, I can't emphasize how much to people who are watching this, how important it is for you as an individual to be looking after your own mental health, for your own well-being in full. Just like in physical first aids, you always got to ensure your own safety before you go and then look after anyone else. And it's not only about that, but when you reach out to other people, if you've been on your own journey, for looking at who you are as an individual, what your values are, what your character is, what your strength is, your belief system, etc., etc. These are all things that make up and can help to better manage your overall well-being. And if you've been on that journey yourself, then you'll be able to build up rapport a lot quicker with another individual. You'll have a certain amount of relatability with them, and you better understand and empathize with their journey a lot better if you've been through it yourself as well. And that's another reason why it's so important that you look after yourselves, apart from obviously the obvious reasons why you need to be looking after yourselves. But if you're wanting to be an advocate and be reaching out to other people, you'll be able to better empathize and understand with others when you've been through your own journey. And just to say, Hosna, well done for putting all this together, darling.
Yeah.
Thank you. Magic, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to say?
That mental health is universal, like whether you've been diagnosed or not, everybody struggles with mental health, because we've all have lived experiences that put us in a state of depression, of manic episodes. So regardless of if you've never really been diagnosed, I think everybody struggles from all walks of life with mental health. And it's important to not categorize like these people struggle with mental health and these people don't. Like it's universal. Whether you're working in the police force, like our highway patrol has a high rate of suicide, nursing, doctors, when they go to residency, they have issues with suicide. Students when they go to college, so there's so much of a social aspect that ties into suicide, and it's beyond sexuality, it's beyond one group. So I think it's important to realize how universal mental health is for every individual in every group, every culture, and how we deal with it will tell us like how effective we are in our work, and how inclusive we are.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all for coming today and giving your perspectives on mental health, especially in this time. It is definitely an issue that we need to conquer. And just hearing your perspectives and what initiatives that you've started, what you've done to help people tackle these issues is really important, as it gives them support. And we encourage them to tell your stories, and they listen to yours, so then they can go ahead and tell theirs, and they won't be alone in this. As somebody who's personally experienced mental health issues, I would also like to help people tackle this. So thank you for coming today, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
for all.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together.